Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Haley.
I'm Elena.
And I'm Danny.
And we all study nutrition at NAU. Today, we'll be exploring the connection between nutritional epigenetics and the development of chronic diseases, with special focus on cardiovascular disease. The genes that we inherit may also be indicative of the chronic illnesses that we develop later in life. Some of these chronic diseases range from diabetes, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, cystic fibrosis, asthma, and cancer. But what's fascinating is that our DNA doesn't necessarily have to determine with 100% certainty what we inherit. The National Institute of Health states that epigenetics refers to heritable changes in gene expression that occur without altering the underlying DNA sequence. Instead, these changes are caused by epigenetic marks. So, epigenetics in nutrition is described by the National Institute of Health as the study of how nutrients, dietary patterns, and specific bioactive food compounds can influence those epigenetic marks, therefore changing how genes are expressed. Epigenetics change as a result of the environment in which we live in and the behaviors that we choose to partake in. So, when it comes to food, we literally are what we eat. Specifically, the food that we eat has the ability to switch our genes on and off like a light switch. There are a lot of reasons why this occurs, one of which includes the reduction of free radicals from the consumption of antioxidant-rich foods that include vitamin C and E, which can neutralize oxidative stress and put on the body from reactivity of free radicals. This can reduce the risk of developing various forms of cancer, but today we will be discussing specifically cardiovascular disease, as it is the number one leading cause of death globally. There are other nutrients such as folate, B vitamins, choline, polyphenols that have the ability to alter DNA methylation patterns that can silence or activate the genes associated with inflammation, insulin sensitivity, lipid metabolism, and other processes associated with cardiovascular disease.
So, we're going to focus kind of on nutritional epigenetics with cardiovascular disease. So, cardiovascular disease, which includes heart attack, stroke, arteriosclerosis, hypertension, is one of the leading causes of death, but not just in the United States, but globally. Epigenetics may be a key to understanding how lifestyle, especially nutrition, can affect how that risk affects the rest of our lives. So, dietary patterns such as high saturated fat diets, processed food, and extra added sugars in the diet can lead to a higher inflammatory gene expression, which can cause poor cholesterol, poor metabolism, and increasing blood pressure, which all contribute to attaining cardiovascular disease. So, while eating nutrient dense foods that have omega 3 fatty acids, antioxidants, whole grains, fiber, and plant based foods, they have been shown to support favorably for the gene expression, which reduces inflammation and supporting cardiovascular disease health at the epigenetic level.
A little real life application. My grandfather actually has type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease, so you see it there hand in hand. He's experienced heart attacks and other symptoms related to poor heart health. It's very clear that cardiovascular disease runs in my family, and I'm definitely predisposed, which is unfortunate, but luckily we have this. There's multiple modifiable lifestyle factors that contribute to the development of cardiovascular disease. This includes diets and high saturated fats, trans fats, added sugars, and ultra processed food, as well as physical inactivity. While public health guidelines emphasize that improving diet and physical activity can significantly reduce chronic disease, individuals with a strong family history of these conditions often report feeling powerless and like they're the next ones in their family to get this, believing that their genetics alone determine that their fate. However, emerging research in the field of epigenetics challenges this belief. Epigenetic mechanisms such as DNA methylation, histone modification, and non-coding RNAs regulate gene expression in response to environmental inputs, including diet. Evidence suggests that nutritional interventions can influence these mechanisms to either suppress or promote expressions of genes related to metabolic function, inflammation, and cardiovascular health. We got that from one of our sources. So sometimes you think like, what should I eat to prevent CVD? So here's some information about diet. According to Mayo Clinic, you should emphasize whole, minimally processed foods and include nutrient-rich meals that support cardiovascular health and influence epigenetic regulation. Um, and then vascular function, cholesterol metabolism, and inflammation. These foods will help combat systematic inflammation.
So, as Danny and Haley have been saying, even if you are predisposed to cardiovascular disease within your genetics, there is a way to kind of lower your risk of it increasing or getting increasingly worse if you prioritize diet with physical activity. So, now we're going to talk about what kind of foods we can eat. So, fruits and vegetables rich in antioxidants, flavonoids, polyphenols, and folate, nutrients known to support DNA methylation and reduce oxidative stress, which can lower risk for disease and illness. And then leafy greens, berries, beets, broccoli, and citrus fruits are especially beneficial for lowering blood pressure and improving arterial health. Diets that are high in antioxidants are associated with reduced expression of pro-inflammatory genes, which play a huge role in the cardiovascular disease progressing further into our bodies. The other types of food groups would be whole grains. So, whole grains like oats, quinoa, barley, and brown rice are excellent sources of fiber, magnesium, and B vitamins. So, just those are a few foods that can be eaten, along with some other ones that Danny's going to get into.
Some really important ones are including lean proteins like omega-3s. Protein sources should support heart health without contributing to vascular damage. This includes legumes, lentils, nuts, seeds, and tofu, which are rich in arginine, a precursor to nitric oxide, which supports vascular dilation and reduces blood pressure. Fatty fish, like we hear all the time, salmon, sardines, and mackerel, provide EPA and DHA, omega-3 fatty acids that have been shown to downregulate inflammatory genes and have lipid metabolism. Another area you should be focusing on is healthy fats, replacing saturated fats with trans fat or not trans fats, replacing saturated and trans fats with unsaturated fats can definitely help impact your gene expression related to lipid transport and inflammation. Monosaturated fats from olive oil, avocados, and nuts have been shown to reduce LDL oxidation and improve HDL function. Polyunsaturated fats, particularly from omega-3 sources, can modify epigenetic markers and genes that regulate heart rhythm, cholesterol handling, and vascular tone.
So, some of the foods that would likely not be good for cardiovascular disease, or evidence has shown that it has seen the disease progress, would be eating added sugars, excess sodium, processed meats, and trans fat are linked to epigenetic changes that increase the expression of inflammatory cytokines. These specific dietary patterns may also show not as like clear arteries and anything like that. And then nutritional epigenetics is powerful. It does tell us that we're not completely helpless in kind of an inherited disease of like high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, or risk for heart attack and stuff like that. So, through thoughtful nutrition and healthy habits, we can be able to slow down, reduce, or prevent expression of genes linked to chronic illness such as cardiovascular disease.
With the research found in epigenetics is that your genes do not determine your fate with regard to cardiovascular disease and other chronic illness. You can influence your gene markers through the foods that you eat, through the physical activity that you're a part of, and other aspects of your environment. Um, Essentially, your health history, what you choose to do, your modifiable risk factors, smoking, drinking, the foods that you eat, the exercise that you take part in, the sleep that you get, all can give you insight into how to prevent the development of cardiovascular disease.